All right, well, I want to welcome everyone today. We're here to talk with Charles Pepper and his small feature, Linear Park. And a quick background, I met Charles almost 7 years ago now.
Is that possible?
I think it's been that long.
Wow.
Charles was one of our first artists who ever rented with us over at H Gallery. He had a studio before we even had studios. He just had this little space and was working in there, and we hit it off right away. He's interesting, he's funny, and he's everything you want in an artist when you think of someone who's creative and fun. And Linear Park was an exhibit that was kind of a happy accident in a lot of ways. So a few months ago, Charles and had contacted Pam at NAMBA and had wanted to put some things in the window. And Pam called me and we started talking, and before we knew it, there was a show in progress. And so that's what we're here to talk about. So I kind of want to start a little bit with you and your background. You are one of the few people that I've ever had that has actually been born and raised in this area. Yeah. I've worked with Ventura-based artists, but they all sort of transplants from all over, and you're the first one that's ever, you're born and raised right here in Ojai.
Not born.
Not born. Where were you born?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Well, once again, a transplant.
Yeah, but I mean, we were here by the time I was 7.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So you grew up here really, and then...
Yep. We had lived in Pennsylvania. That's where I was born. Mm-hmm. And then moved to West Virginia, or no, Denver, Colorado, then West Virginia. Mm-hmm. Like I say, by the time I was 7, we were here. So I was starting first grade about when we moved to California. So I was raised in Ojai.
In Ojai. Not
a lot of Pennsylvania left.
No. Ojai
whatever was in there.
Well, Ojai is known for being a very creative place.
Yes.
Sort of, people are really, they are not only inspired by it, but they're encouraged to make art and be creative, whether it's music or art or building anything. I mean, and so I'm wondering if that had an influence on you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely a place where you walk around and everyone's doing something weird, you know what I mean? And are encouraged to do it,
yeah.
Definitely. But that's actually where I met Pam years and years ago, was from Ojai, because I was doing theater classes and she was teaching dance. So we've known each other since I was 12, 11? Long time. Yeah. So, but yeah, because there was always something going on up there, you know, whether it be the music festival or the Shakespeare festival. But yeah, there was always, people were encouraged to be artistic.
Were you always tinkering with something?
Absolutely.
I mean, it was something that was just sort of inherent in what you...
Yeah, it was always something I did from the time I was a kid. I don't know why necessarily, you know. I think my older sister drew, so I kind of started drawing, but I read comic books. I love comic books, you know, so I'd read comic books and draw the characters and try to draw my own characters. But you realize pretty quick that people aren't that into it. You know, when you're a 12, 13, 14-year-old boy, the girls don't love it. You know, it's kind of nerdy. But you start... Well, I remember one time I'd drawn this face, and someone complimented me on it. And I never really had gotten any compliments on anything, you know what I mean? Because it was like, you know, muscle-bound, superheroes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's how you do it. You know, you use the charcoal or whatever.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So that's when I started trying to just really draw, you know, and I had a sketchbook and I was always working on it.
Were your parents encouraging?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they're right here. Thanks to them, this is what happened. But no, yeah, they were very encouraging. You know, there was 4 kids in my family, so I had 2 sisters and a brother. And so we all had our own interests, you know, but they would always encourage us to do anything, especially something that, you know, I don't think you guys had to take me anyplace for it. You know? But yeah, so it was something I always did. And it was something I always kind of did on my own. You know, no one ever told me to start doing it. Just, you know.
Well, and you had mentioned to me that really, you know, you had started, you really, not want to say collected everything, but whether it was magazines or, you know, just...
That's pretty recent. You know,
oh, okay.
My ambition was always to do big canvases and paint, you know, figurative and realistic, photorealism. I lost interest at a certain point, you know, and it's kind of prohibitive in a lot of ways, you know, space and money and time. Yeah. So yeah, when I first moved back to Ventura, I'd been in New Mexico, and I moved back and I moved into a studio apartment. That's when I first started using the found objects. But originally, the idea of that is that I was gonna make them digital, and then they were gonna be spit out again. You know, so it was much more graphic designy when I started. But as I kind of kept going, I just enjoyed working with my hands and working with the materials. And as it kind of kept going, I was just, with the lack of space, you know, like what's nice about collage or works on papers, it all can go in drawers. You know, like you can put it away when people come over.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not just like, hey, a crazy person lives here, you know. But yeah, no, so that's why I started. It was kind of a necessity, but what became interesting about it is the more I limited myself with materials, the more I liked the work because it became very specific. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't about the ideas in my head anymore. You know, it was about what the things were. You know?
Yeah, and that was something that when you were at H Gallery, when we got a chance to see your studio,
Sure.
I mean, you were always bringing in something. Whether it's a chair or a table or a knickknack or whatever it was to me, it was some found, scavenged object from somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody's alley, somebody's
Well, you know, the other thing was when I first moved back was right before the recession, right? And so, like, people were going out of business left and right. There was great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the upside of it was if you were into old furniture or you were into old file cabinets or whatever, it was out there. I mean, I remember there was a guy he had a novelty shop, but it was like a warehouse full of novelty items, like joy buzzers, and you know, that was his whole business. And I remember him saying, he's pulling out these great old file cabinets, and I'm like, I grabbed one from him. And then he says, oh, you want to come see what else I got? You know, and his whole warehouse was just full of file cabinets, full of stuff.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, you were able. I mean,
objects,
you were everything you brought in though. You were able to manipulate or turn. You know, you were turning out these really great pieces.
From nothing.
From nothing.
That was the idea.
From out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we'd peek in one day and it really did look like some kind of junk hunt, and then the next day you're like, oh wow, that's a finished piece. This is a produced piece of artwork. That was something that really, you know, that caught my eye specifically. That's something I knew was very special. It wasn't, while you may have these items that came in and you really didn't know what they might have maybe had an inkling when you first grabbed them, but when you really started handling them or manipulating them, you were really able to transition from, you know, nothing into a really great piece of artwork.
Yeah, I mean, when I got into H Gallery, which wasn't called H Gallery back
No, we did
then,
not call it
I don't
H
think it
Gallery.
had a name.
No, we didn't have
I think
a name.
it was pre-name. Yeah, but when I had moved out of a house and I was living with someone, and I was kind of in between in life, you know, and I'd moved into a very small house in Casita Springs, and then I saw the ad on Craigslist. I said, well, that would be perfect, and I got the money because I'm living in this tiny little house in Casita Springs, so I could do both. I could have the studio in Ventura and still have a place to sleep.
Yeah.
And but that really was another transition point for me where I really got more into, which was weird because the intention of getting into a larger studio was to do larger work.
Yeah.
Because I was out of the tiny apartment, you know, I was out of the small constricted space.
Right.
Did not happen that way.
Well, no, you were, I don't know, but I'm guessing that point is when you really were able to start kind of getting all these found objects and making sort of a little...
Sort of, yeah. No, it was going its own way.
Yeah.
It was definitely had a mind of its own.
It was the first time that I had seen collage work from you, but also, in my opinion, collage work that was exceptional. It didn't feel crafty. It didn't feel forced. It was exceptional, and I think collage is one of those areas of art that it can go either way really quick.
Sure.
You know, it can be fine art, but it can also be really bad kind of craft and just have a really bad association with it. And with you, it was the first time I had seen collage work that, again, was, in my opinion, exceptional. But that was where you were saying that was more of a recent thing for you. You had just started collecting.
Well, I mean, now that you say we've known each other for 7 years, I guess it's not that recent.
as recent, yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's, for me, in my mind, yeah, it still is sort of a new avenue that I was going down, you know, but like I say, I was just kind of lucking into it, you know, of finding the stuff and the materials, and then you realize how much printed material is out there, you know. It's just like,
old National Geographic.
Sure, and I just kind of became a total obsessive about the materials, where I wouldn't use anything varnished, you know, when I was looking for a certain weight, you know, so I was looking for textures more instead of images, you know, and that was helpful, you know, to get away from, like you say, when you stop focusing on what you're looking at, you know, versus, you know, when you start seeing the lines differently, or the shades.
Your collage work takes on, you have, I mean, there are several, there are several sort of stages that you can see, you know, your progression. And you have, some of them were very architectural, some of them were very figurative, some of them were abstract in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
But you, and even today when we were talking about the, you know, selling them singularly as opposed to series, you know, you're very adamant that they have to go together.
Some of them.
Right, but but that shows you how your mind works when you're putting these things together. There's a certain, you know, you are working in series, and you have this mind, you know, you have.
I'm not, you know, but they are, you know, like it's like it's like it just so happens sometimes, like maybe you've got, like I was using a lot of end paper out of books, which is the blank page between the cover and the first page of printing, right? Which is usually a little bit heavier weight, you know. So I was just going, and you know, you find a boxes of free books. Sometimes there's nothing good in the book except the end paper, you know. And I'm sorry for any authors out there. It sounds like I'm doing terrible things to your books, but yeah. So you'd end up with maybe 4 pieces of end paper that look identical, right? And so those just naturally become a series. You know, they've already spent all that time in the book. Yeah. You know, so like they're gonna just probably stay together.
Yeah. You know? You work. You know, kind of, and as I've known you over the years, and even today, you're always talking about how the work is sort of as an entity of itself. And it really, like you're saying, the series, they make themselves. It's not me, it's the series making themselves.
Yeah, because it's annoying to have an idea walking into it. I mean, I don't do this for money. Like, this is not a career for me, you know? This is like a hobby, it's a pastime. It's what I do when I can do what I want to do, right? And so it's not, you know.
But you say that, but you're one of, and I can honestly tell you, out of all of the artists that I know, you are one of the very few people who dedicates every day to this, to what you do. You have a certain time period every single day that you're dedicating towards your art. You may not think you're a working artist. Trust me, you're a working artist.
I know, I work.
This is what I mean. You have, there's artists there are artists that they don't, you know, everything's up here and it's all, and then maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, maybe once a month, they're actually executing these ideas.
But everyone's process is different.
Everyone's process is different, but it's funny for me to hear that you don't feel as though you're, you know, this isn't a career for me, but you spend so much time and you're so dedicated.
And I tried stopping for a while. I was like, well, this is just giving me nothing but, you know, like heartache. I'm done. You know, it's like, it's not going to be what I want it to be ever. I'm just not going to do this anymore. Yeah. It just didn't last, you know. So I'm wondering sometimes if it's just a compulsion, you know, if I'm just compulsively making this stuff.
I think the amount of artists that I've worked with, I think that compulsion is what makes you a good artist. It's that need to do this. You don't. Yeah.
Who knows where it comes from? Though.
Like you were saying, how you had an idea that you'd work on these big canvases and you'd execute this. You know, you'd put this out into the world, and then you got away from that, and then now what you're doing is almost an obsessive or compulsive kind of thing. Kind of
obnoxious.
Yeah. I hate to tell you, you're an artist. Yeah. I don't want to be the one to break it to you.
No, I know, but like I say, what's nice for me is when I divorce it from, you know, the financial side, right? Or even the material side, right? Like I have no, there's nothing that can limit me then. You know what I mean? Like I'm not required to do anything for anyone. You know, it's purely.
For those of you that don't know, Charles, I actually have to force him to show artwork. Charles, he's never one to really contact me about wanting to get this stuff out here. I always have to track him down, and I have to physically remove artwork from him and then hang it on a wall. And that started last year. We had the big, I took the piece off your living room wall.
Yeah.
And we put that in a show at our local government center. We had a show there for artists under 40. And your piece was, God, I think that piece was 12 feet long, 9 feet long. It was so long.
I don't know.
I can't remember now.
Skinny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was one of the highlights of the show. I mean, everybody that was one of the largest pieces that had feedback from, and everyone really liked it. We took it down, we brought it home, and then just a couple months after that,
sold it.
we ended up selling it. And
the first piece of art I've ever sold.
Right.
Yeah.
And
thanks to you.
I'm telling you, I'm going to have to continue to rip the art out from your clutches in order to sell this. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the term outsider art. Outsider art was sort of coined in the 70s to describe artists that are self-taught. They didn't have any real formal training. They didn't go to 8 years of art school. And outsider art is something that, in my opinion, is probably one of the most valuable, because again, it comes from a place that it's not a formal education. It's not something that was imposed upon you. It's something that you inherently have to do. And if you're really dedicated to it, which I believe you are, it will eventually translate. And it will eventually, I mean, I keep thinking that in 15, 20, maybe even 30 years from now, somebody somewhere is going to be like, wait, you don't know who Charles Pepper is? That's weird, because he's the most prolific collage artist of our time, And I have these visions for you because I feel like this compulsion that you have and this need to put work out there, even though the work puts itself out there. Even though the work makes itself, I feel that compulsion and that desire has translated into very fine artwork.
Thank you.
And very, it can only get better as it has continually.
Sure.
But one particular aspect of you specifically that is very interesting is your rejection of technology, social media, where other artists, many, I would say almost all, and everyone that I've certainly worked with, they have their Facebook and Instagram and their website, and you have none of that. And you purposely have none of that. And I'm wondering, I know this isn't a career for you, but I'm wondering, one, why? Why haven't you gone that route? Do you think you ever will?
No.
No.
I doubt it. I mean, those guys did a great trick of convincing people that was necessary, and then they don't pay anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, they got everyone putting up everything, their most personal stuff, and there doesn't seem to be any,
Yeah.
So it's like, it seems odd to me. It's a little bit like how, I mean, I don't know what point it started, but that like people started wearing like logos, right? Where they're just advertising for a company and they're not getting paid. They're paying for the privilege of, so that feels like that to me. Like all I'm doing is enriching Facebook or Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I just don't have, I mean, that's just not interesting.
You have no desire for people to find you.
No, if they find me, great. You know what I mean? I just don't, it's not a priority.
It is.
Like, no, because that, like you say, I spend every day, there's a certain amount of time a day. Mm-hmm. There's a certain amount of time that I can spend to make art. Why would I spend that on Facebook? Why would I spend that on Instagram?
I mean, for me, as an outsider looking in, I don't obviously, as a business owner, and as an artist, we have to have, we feel we have to have those things in order for our business to grow, in order for our outreach to
exactly.
grow. So for me, I feel it is a necessary evil in a lot of ways. It takes so much time that you can spend doing other things.
Yeah.
But I also feel as though it is necessary because that's just the world we live in now.
Right.
Which you're rejecting on
totally.
all accounts. Right.
No, but just for the art, you know what I'm saying?
I feel though,
like just because it's then it's mine still, it's not. I get to choose about that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
like
mean,
if I was out selling, rims for tires, I'd have no problem with it. Mm-hmm. I'd be advertising. Right. Come on down, get your new rims. I just don't.
I have to say, I think it's both a blessing and a curse even for you in a lot of ways, and for me looking in, from an outside perspective, I feel though it's such a benefit for you to not have any of that, because then you're not influenced by anything.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because it's
where the creative space that you come from is truly yours in every sense.
Right.
If you're not constantly scanning other images, or you're not constantly looking, even if you're just following artists that you like.
But a lot of stuff gets in, when you're doing that.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think is, again, unique about your work, is that your influence and inspiration is truly yours. There is no way that anything else can filter in. You're not on anything.
Right. Well, this whole show was inspired by
Right.
the homeless,
Right.
essentially, So, I mean, stuff's getting in.
Well,
It's
what I'm
just-
saying is, though, you don't have that artificial feed.
Right.
You don't have, you're not looking at other people's work and then possibly taking from that. This is all you. I mean, you're looking at magazines maybe for your collages, but those take on a whole life in itself. You're
Right.
not just redoing the images and in a different setting.
Yeah, and increasing, like you say, it's gotten more abstract. I mean, less and
Right.
less is anything even recognizable.
Right. And then, that to me really makes what your work very special. And where your inspiration does come from is your everyday. You really put yourself out into the world every day.
Yeah.
You're able to soak that in because you're not distracted by anything else. And that's really, that's how linear, like you said, that's how linear park came in, is your natural surroundings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day.
So
Yeah.
how tell us about linear park and how you kind of, tell us about it. It actually is a physical park here in Ventura.
At worst park ever.
The worst park ever. Tell us about linear park and your,
It's not, it's not a thing. It's not like there's nothing there. There's nothing there that would make you think it's a park. But I ride my bike through there every morning, and there's always something different going on, like not good, really. It's people sleeping there. There's always new bags of trash kind of dumped out there, and it's right along a barranca. And there's always interesting things down there. So I don't know, it's just an interesting place when you see it evolving. And then when I went, I don't know why I was looking on Google for something, and I noticed it had a name. I was like, well, that's interesting. Someone bothered to name this. It's like an embankment,
Yeah.
But yeah, they named it Linear Park for some reason. Because I guess it's because it's in a line.
Yeah.
But it's basically just crammed between an equipment rental parking lot and a concrete, channelized barranca.
And it's completely, it's just homeless camp there.
That's
people
it.
dump and.
Yeah, it's just garbage
Just
stuff.
garbage.
Yeah.
So what came first when you were going through Linear Park? Was it the sketches themselves that came first, or were you just started grabbing
Pam
stuff?
asked me if I wanted to do a window, and I said, well, I've never done a window. And I couldn't imagine doing a two-dimensional piece in the window, so I was like, well, I need to make something three-dimensional.
Right.
It just got into my head that I had to do that. And I thought, well, I'm not going to go it's not me to go and I'm getting clay or something,
Yeah.
I'm going to collage it. It's just going to be a three-dimensional collage.
Yeah.
And then I looked around at what's available, and that's basically found objects, just like the magazines, but
Right.
this time with pieces of wood and whatnot. And so it was all stuff collected in that area, that whole industrial area down there.
What are some of the items that you'd collected in there?
Oh, great stuff. There was an old, I think it was like a 1930s hand truck. A lot of the wood came from that. Just different bits and pieces, pieces of metal. There was I don't know, it looked like maybe it was a cover for some piece of electrical panel or something. That was
Wasn't one of
painted.
them like a big boat rudder?
Oh yeah, there's a rudder in there.
Yeah.
Yep, the big rusty piece of big boat rudder. There were two of those actually. I found.
So how do you when you're writing, do you pick it up?
I gotta
and
go
ride?
back with my
You gotta
truck.
go back with your truck. Okay.
Yeah.
I can just imagine it.
Luckily,
I can
no one's
imagine, riding
there's not a lot of
bicycle.
danger of someone else. I was worried about it in the beginning because I was finding all this great stuff. It's like wow, it's like oh, it's just happening. I did these sculptures, and then I would be like, I got to go back and get this thing. And I was like, no one's picking it up, and there's no one who's going like, oh, a boat rudder, just what I need,
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. So
Right.
yeah, so that ended up being what it was. Yeah, the idea was that I was going to try to make some sculpture, which I've never really done before, and I thought, well, it's a good idea to sketch it out first, but I don't really do sketches. I don't really, so
Yeah.
it was more of just impressions, I guess you could say. I was looking for a certain flow. I was looking for a certain set of colors.
Yeah.
I was looking for kind of more of the idea of the thing.
And didn't you make your own charcoal? Like you were taking
No,
the
I
burnt
used
wood
I used the lump charcoal from the, for barbecue.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah. I mean, you're talking this is what I'm
Almost.
saying though, is your pieces, whether it's going to be collage or sketching or your assemblages.
Sure.
I mean, you're finding and utilizing things that,
Well, the reason is beyond just the fact that it's available and it's from my world, is also that I always just thought it was ridiculous that we have these categories, like this is an artistic material to use. There's not a lot of difference between some industrial or household paints and what we would call like stuff you buy at the art store.
Right.
Except the price tag, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna charge a premium.
Yeah.
And then you start to think, well, I'm a lot more familiar with the stuff from the hardware store than I am with the stuff from the art store. So I'm gonna keep using that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like aerosol cans and different kinds of what's so interesting is it got all these different kinds of oils that you can use on furniture. You know what I mean? Well, you mix that up with pastel, right? You got a little,
you just made an oil paint.
you got an oil paint. You got it. Very basic. But it is, so you don't need to, but the problem is that the other materials have so much baggage, you go and you get yourself a nice set of oil paints and you want to teach yourself how to paint like someone from the Renaissance, but I see no value in that at all, you know what I mean? That was of its time, that was a very particular thing. Now there are oil paints, today going on that I absolutely love, you know what I mean? It's not like I frown on that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's got to be coming from someplace personal, or in your life at least.
Yeah, your attachments to things are very interesting. You don't have, there's, even in your body work, everything you have is very organized. It may not feel like it to you, but as someone who does studio visits, it's very organized. These binders of work and, everything.
Well, as you've seen, you don't have a lot of space. Yeah.
No, you don't.
You gotta keep it tight. You know? It's like living on a boat.
But to me, there is a little bit of a juxtaposition of someone who, you say, well, this isn't my career. I don't have an attachment. I don't, but then you have all these things that are very carefully archived in a lot of ways.
Sure. But it's kind of like if you were making furniture. It's not like if you made a chair, you'd just be like, I'm done with the chair, let's throw it away. You keep the chair. I know that thing's been going this whole time.
Now, you can pick that up and save it for later.
I know, I go put it on right now.
We'll go put it the sculptures the linear park sculptures with the found objects, when seeing those prior to them being finished, and I knew, they were rough for me. They were rough. And I was like, man, I don't know where you're going with this. I'm like, how is this all going to come together? And I really had to trust you as an artist because I just know you, and I'm letting you have your way with it, essentially. And to see they were roughly maybe a week and a half apart, I think, from when I saw them to when we ended up picking them up. Being able to see them together, and then you had your lights attached to them, and we were able to put them in the window, and everything comes together. It's really, really amazing to see. I guess really it's your process and the thought behind the work when it's finished is really the highest value that it has, because all of these things they're taped together, they're strung together, they're true assemblages of things that are around you. And this was, at the end of the day, which was the most surprising to me, these were your real first attempts at sculpture. You hadn't made sculpture before, you've repurposed maybe furniture, or you've done the collage.
Yeah, but usually they end up being flat wall hanging, right? Not freestanding.
How, I feel like I'm watching you do this, and at the end of the day, I'm happy with the result as somebody else looking at it, but how, for you, this new venture of sculpture, how was that for you?
Awesome. Totally great. Yeah. Too big. I made them too big. I should have done much smaller. But I should have learned that a long time ago. That, you know what I mean? That I'm better on the intimate scale. But it was cool. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Do you think you'll do more?
Yeah, but littler. Yeah, so they can actually fit in my studio. You know, it was a total it was difficult working on both of them in limited space. And my intention was to have them both on stands of furniture that I'd found. You know, I had an old table and an old stool.
Yeah, well,
And
that's what we had.
Yeah, we had. They're too tall for the window,
Yeah.
so they didn't really work. But the idea is I want them on wheels and lit up. You know, I don't know why. That's what that was.
It worked out. No, it was perfect.
That was the idea.
To me, the
but-
light was really the finishing touch.
Yeah.
Because you can have them, you know, especially when you saw them at night and you can see them with the lights on. Like for me, they made a lot more sense.
Right.
When you were able to plug them in.
Sure.
You know, and I mean, not just because you found these things, but they at that point, because that was really my biggest worry was how are they going to be finished?
Right.
How do you finish something that is?
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I don't know when it's done, especially when you're working with assemblage like that.
Right.
So, and for me, when the lights went on and we were able to plug them in, I was like, oh, this is all making sense now. This
Right.
all makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like there is commentary to be had. This sort of, you know, this park that's run down that is just really it's a homeless camp in a lot of ways, and then you have this sculpture that, I mean, everything separate is garbage, and then once you've taken it and you've put it together and you've literally plugged this piece in,
Right.
we've now moved over again. We've moved over again from taking, you know, something that was nothing and turning it into something once again.
Hopefully.
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 Well, I think you did.
Yeah,
I think you
that's
got it.
the intention.
Yeah. Well, I want to know again I was going to ask you what your next move is going to be. Where do you think you're going to go from here? But I'm worried. I'm you know, where do you think the art will take you next? What do you think you're next?
I don't know. I don't know because I'm about to have my first child, so I got to focus on little man. That's what's next. But other than that, no, I don't know. I don't know what's next. I'll probably just kind of fall back into my very comfortable pattern.
Until I come knocking again and I was like, give me artwork. I need more to put out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy what I do. It's the sculptures were a challenge. You know, it was frustrating when things didn't work out and you're wrestling it. You know, but yeah, so I'll probably go back to what I was doing previously. But yeah, I'd like to try it again someday. You know, so no, I don't know. I got a nice piece of canvas I want to stretch, but I don't know when
that you found.
No, didn't find it.
No, how'd you get this one?
No, but my sister's a baker and she
right.
uses this fabric to roll the loaves. So I thought, well, at least I could, because it's beautiful, you know. It looks like Belgian linen, but it's not. I don't know what it is. But it's really nice stuff, and I thought, well, this at least is a workman's material, you know, versus a fine art material, so I can kind of get away. But they only sell it in one width, hence the long, skinny painting.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what, though? I mean, he built, I just want to go back to it really quick, this long, skinny painting, and he built the frame for it out of, I think it was, why do I want to say cedar? I feel like it was a cedar.
It was redwood.
Redwood, that's
Yep.
what it was.
Yep.
This big, long redwood frame that was done very well.
Thank you.
It was very well done. It was just so unique, which is, I think, why it was the standout for the show.
Yeah, well, that's the idea is that if it can have a personal touch, you know what I mean? But that's the thing. So for this one, I went and got 4 pieces sewn together. So now I got a wide one, so I don't have to be limited but to the long, skinny. And it's gonna look cool, I think, when I stretch it, because I'm hoping that those seams really pull. You know what I mean? And you get kind of that crooked sort of thing going on. But yeah, I'd love to paint that one, but who knows when that's gonna happen?
I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you for coming today and sitting down with me. I do want to open up the floor if anybody has any questions. Feel free to pop in. Anybody?
No.
No, we answered everything?
So, about how old were you when your parents first questioned your integrity about what you were doing?
Well, it wasn't my integrity they questioned. They just said, are you sure? I remember my dad actually bought me an airbrush set thinking, well, at least you could make some money, you know? But, yeah, no, it was...
How much of it?
Yeah. How much did we sell that painting for?
It was a nice chunk of change, I'll say that. That was a nice chunk of change.
Yeah, but, yeah, no, it was... they were very supportive of me, always, with the artistic pursuits.
Do you play an instrument?
No. Nope. I tried to play trumpet for a while. It didn't go so well. But it was, you know, it's tough to learn that in a apartment complex. Not a lot of love from the neighbors.
No.
Oh, I have just an impression
Sure.
that the first time I saw, like I told you earlier, your space, I couldn't tell, am I looking at your art or am I looking at your studio? There was a blurred line there, and I was fascinated with your studio. So if there was art in your studio, I loved it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say, oh, I loved your art because your studio was fascinating to me.
Fascinating's the word, yeah. I put a curtain up myself because I was like, I don't need to subject anyone to this. You know, I don't want it to ruin Rodrigo's business. But, yeah.
Yes, ma'am?
First of all, I love your work.
Thank you.
I really admire your creativity. And I know that Jessica touched on this, but you seem to be very much of the moment. Do you have any vision of yourself in terms of the future and your artistic?
Not really. No, I don't think of it that way, you know what I mean? I don't have ambitions for it that way, but I don't want to say that like I'm giving it short shrift, you know. That's not what it is. It's just, you know, after, you know, you kind of get to a point with it where you're like, if I have any kind of an idea about this, it just ends up being bad art, you know. Because you go into it with an intention, and maybe that's not true for everyone, but for me, I get frustrated when it's not what I want it to be. So you end up strangling it, you know.
So you don't really have a vision before you start something?
No, not at all. No, definitely
You
not.
let it just
Try to just make the space and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am an author by the way, so.
So you know, you have great ideas going in, you know, and then it gets.
You're always creating yourself, so I understand how art creates.
Yeah, but not everyone has that technique, you know, and I appreciate that. But for me, definitely, yeah, no, I can't. I just, it's too heartbreaking, you know. It's just too much, too frustrating to have these ideas about how something's going to look, and then when it doesn't turn out, you know, you just beat yourself up over it. So,
Well, your work is really awesome.
thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am?
So you say you don't go into it with any intention or like any pre-idea of what you want it to be. So when you're done with the piece, how do you know it's done? If it's all through intuition?
Well, I start a timer. It's not that far off. Because, like I say, time is the precious commodity, you know. So a lot of times that will happen. You know, I'll be forced to walk away from a piece, and I won't be happy with it. And then I'll come back and I still won't be happy with it, but I'll just be too unhappy to keep working on it. And it will go away. It goes into a drawer. It'll, you know, and then later I'll be digging through and I'll see it, and I'll be like, oh geez, you know, a couple moves and this thing's done, and then it's done, you know.
So it's pretty much just what feels right then. Just like,
For me it is, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Or when I knock on the door and I say, it's time.
Yeah, when
You have to leave now.
she gave me a
It's done.
deadline. She says
It's done.
next Saturday.
Yeah.
I said, all right.
Now it's done. No, it was, I mean, looking at your work and watching it sort of transform as you work, it is really interesting because you don't know where, I mean, I know you don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's going to go either. And so it is always kind of a, you know,
Yeah, I took a painting class once and the teacher said that. She said, Charles, it's really amazing. I can walk away and come back in 30 minutes and it's a totally different painting. I didn't know how to take it, you know. I was like, everyone else is kind of slowly moving toward a goal, and I would just be like, just screw it, start over.
I think being able to embrace that though is what makes you special and makes your art special.
It just is what it is, you know. It's you got to let it be what it wants to be, you know, instead of trying to make it into what you want it to be, which, like I say, it's a long road trying to do that, for sure.
Just a quick question about your linear park series.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular message that you're trying to put across there, or is it just
Not necessarily. No, I just think that things are beautiful. There's this one guy who, I don't even know if he's homeless, but he collects cans, and he's really amazing. I think this guy is probably the best artist in town, because what he'll do is he just keeps stringing sticks together. And he adds to his little cart until it's got longer and longer and longer. And by the end, this looks like a boat, and he's got it strung with Christmas lights, and he's got pinwheels on it, you know, and he keeps adding to it. He's probably driving a Porsche, you know. It's like one of those guys you see, like the millionaire next door. But I see that guy's stuff, and I'm like, it's pretty impressive. And it's always new every day. Every day he starts over and he does it again, you know. But he's not just going for the cans. That's what's interesting. He's making a little thing. He's got a little thing he's doing, you know. So yeah. But no, there's no real message to it other than, I don't know. What was interesting, I guess, was it was right when the Thomas fires hit. So I was like, oh geez, I'm making this art that looks like it was in the fire, you know. It's like looked like something out of a burned down building. And the worst than that is as I was walking around, I was like, I just felt like no one was going to be interested in that with the amount of destruction that we've all seen. But it was all, these were started previous, you know, to that. I was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll try to make something that looks like it got, you know, like swept down river and stuck in a tree, you know, or that's what I was kind of going for. And then everything happened, and it was, it sort of got a little discouraging at a certain point, you know. But I thought, well, I got to finish them. You know?
You do, yes.
I had to. I wouldn't have anything to show at all if I hadn't done it. So, yeah.
Where is Linear Park?
It's by, well, if you know where Channel Drive is, you know, and then you go, it's by, if you go under there's an overpass for the 101, you go under that, and then there's like Hill Brothers Moving Company, and then there's the Barrancas on your right side.
Okay.
Well, Linear Park's right after that.
Oh, okay.
But next to the chain link fence between there and the United rental parking lot.
Yeah. Got
Yeah.
it. So that's, okay, got it.
Yeah, like I say, it's well, someone told me, they're like, you shouldn't ride your bike through there. It's very dangerous, you know, but I've never had a problem. Yeah, there's always something going on there. But there's also a storage yard where there are a bunch of people throughout the years have set up shop. They live there. They got a bunch of trailers and, yeah. So there's, like I said, there's always stuff going on in that area. So it's kind of interesting, yeah.
All right, well.
Thanks, guys.
I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming today. I really appreciate it. That's it.
All right.
All right.
Thank you, Jessica.